We're live.
What up, nerds? Welcome to another episode of Where Comics and Cards Collide, where we will discuss the current resurgence of comic book trading cards and how you can get in on the action. But before we get started, let's do another roll call. Sam, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, thanks for making the time today. I really appreciate it.
Sure thing.
How's it going, JR?
It's going all right. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well. So just to get started and just give a little recap, last episode, we discussed essentially what's kind of trending and how things are going and how you can kind of use your comic book knowledge and kind of pick the characters that you wanted to submit or the characters that you know that are popular that you can either invest in or to flip, right? And we also mentioned some of the grading services. So in this episode, we are going to talk a lot more about how to go and get your card submitted and all the way through to the shipping process. So again, as Sam would say, we're going from soup to nuts. And so this is today's episode. Did I miss anything, Sam? Are we good?
I think we're good. You know, if the conversation leads us there, right, we can probably talk about a little bit about the market, what we're seeing. I know that's also probably kind of a question that is on people's minds. So we'll kind of do the best to weave that into the conversation.
All right. So let's get started. All right. So here we go. And one of the questions that we got from JR actually last episode had to do with PSA versus all of the other graders. And we looked at specifically BGS, which is Beckett, and also CGC, which is basically a new comer to this particular field with grading trading cards. So I picked these two out, and I know it's not apples to apples, but they're similar. So you have PSA versus GMA, which is another card grader. So in looking at something that's very similar, again, Doctor Strange, Black Cat, Spider-Man, I mean, you know, I couldn't get anything that's exact, but you'll notice a difference in price for both for something that's graded as a 7. You have a PSA 7 that's getting a little bit more money versus a GMA 7 that's getting a lot less. So this is one of the reasons why you would kind of go over and get your cards graded from PSA, even though it probably is a little bit more pricier. And the turnaround times are a little bit longer.
Yeah, so I would add on to that, right? It was very kind of eloquently put by, so there's a gentleman named Ken Golden, who I don't know if any of you are familiar with. He runs a site called Golden Auctions. They were actually just recently acquired by a really large investment firm, of which some of the partners are like people like Logan Paul, Kevin Durant, music producer Timbaland. So smart money is getting into the space. But anyways, Golden, on one of his lives, someone asked him a question. He's like, oh, like which grading card company should I use, right? Does it matter? And he pretty much put it as, look, if you want to collect what you like, buy whatever company's label that you like. If you're looking to invest or, and flip or sell, then you got to go PSA. PSA all the way, because that's the brand that people who are throwing money around, that's the brand that they want to buy. And that's the one that they most associate with prestige. So that's where I think, PSA, and you're seeing it right in the prices, even PSA versus GMA. The other thing that you didn't touch on as well that I want to touch on is, so, you've got PSA 7 and a GMA 7. So, from a numerical perspective, hey, they look the same, PSA, GMA, what's the difference? The reality is, though, that not all the grading standards of the companies are the same. Anyone with kind of expertise or experience looking at some of these GMA cards up close, or even PSA versus Beckett, to be quite frank, will tell you that they are not equivalent. So PSA 7 is not equivalent to a GMA. If you buy that GMA thinking, hey, maybe it's an arbitrage opportunity, I'll crack that out, I'll send it to PSA. Don't be shocked if you get a PSA 4.
So they're basically like the PGX of cards.
That's exactly it. So again, to Sam's point, just be careful. Don't think you're getting a one for one. It's definitely going to be a little different. Alrighty, so moving on. So a lot of, and I know I'm kind of guilty at doing this. I go look at sold auctions. So I would see, hey, I have this Wolverine card, and oh my God, it's sold for $750. I am going to rush out, get my card graded, because why not? I mean, I want to get in on this action. But in reality, your cards will have flaws. So you have to understand that even though somebody sold this card for $750, graded PSA 10, it doesn't mean that the card that you're going to submit or the card that you own is also a PSA 10. So you need to be very careful with what you're doing with your card, or how you're going to spend your money. Okay, and this is again just one example. And on the flip side, you could get a PSA 7, and again, it's a Wolverine card. It's different, but it's still Wolverine, and it is still the Series 1 from Marvel Universe. And this PSA 7 sold for $83, which again isn't bad for a card that you spent 50 cents on in order to get this whole pack. So again, just kind of look at your card, make sure that everything kind of lines up. Sam gave a great detailed layout or explanation of what to look for. So again, take what we said, use your experience with comic books to kind of look at this card, make sure the corners are sharp, make sure it's centered, the edges are nice and smooth, the surface is great. And again, you could be getting that PSA 10, potentially.
So I'm just curious. In comics, you can press and you can kind of get some of these defects out. Is there any way to do that with cards?
So I think right in comics, correct me if I'm wrong, I think in comics, right, you can actually pay for that service, right? Someone will actually press it out for you. So they don't actually have that for cards. And in fact, actually there was, so any attempt to kind of like press, or I don't know, I mean, theoretically, I guess you could press it on your own, but any attempt to like alter the card in any way to sort of like bring its appearance back up, restore it, if you will, that's a big no-no. They will flag you for it. They actually, there's a big scandal maybe about 6 months ago. They actually, I think, banned an outright group submission for it. And so like that group can't even like submit cards anymore because they found evidence of tampering. So the short answer is like, no. Like don't do it. If you want to do the equivalent of pressing, so like I know Alonzo had some cards that were just like warped. They were kind of like bent like this. You could try the good old tried and true method of stick.
So Sam's a little paused, but what you can do is you just need to put weight on it. So find a flat surface, find another one, put them together like a sandwich, and definitely put some additional weight on there in order to kind of help flatten that out.
And he's back. I think. Maybe not.
Oh, yeah. Sam is having some technical difficulties, so we'll just kind of go through that.
Yeah.
But again, Sam is helping me with some of my cards. They are Pokemon cards. They are the foils. One of them is a Charizard. But again, it kind of has that U shape. But he's trying to bend it out or flatten it as best he can before we can get that submitted. I will
say for comics originally, pressing and all that stuff was a big no-no originally too. That in recent years has changed to where that is not considered restoring or altering the book in any way. But that was within the last like 7-8 years.
Yeah. And I don't know if we can use our experience or our knowledge from pressing a book into pressing a card.
Oh, I doubt it.
I mean, because we are using it's essentially a piece of cardboard.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to try to figure out like those little nuances in order to kind of do that. But again, to Sam's point, put them in between two flat surfaces, put some weight on it, and hope and pray to God that it'll like flatten out.
Yeah, the thing I'll say is, like, especially for 1990 Marvel, since you're using this as an example, you're not going to have as much of an issue with the curvature of the card. The biggest thing I think with the 1990 Marvel cards, like aside from obviously the centering, which I think we talked about last time, is you're going to have potentially like a lot of just like, I don't know, surface like dirt, if you will, right? I mean, some of these people are unearthing these things after like 30 years, right? And when we talk about surface is not just stuff that's like actually marked on the card. It could be things like dirt. PSA is not going to clean that dirt off for you, right? So make sure you wipe that down, take like a microfiber cloth or something like that, wipe it off. It will absolutely count against you if, like, for whatever reason, there's like a piece of dirt that you could have removed in the process before submission, but you don't. They'll look at it, be like, oh, there's a piece of dirt. Okay, I'm not going to give that a 10 anymore. I'll give it a 9. So.
And then they'll gladly take your money when you resubmit it after you clean it.
That is correct.
Nice.
Absolutely. I think you also have, I think, like a screenshot, right, of the pop reports, Alonzo. Maybe we can jump to that. I want to make a point about that.
Okay, so let's kind of fast forward things a little bit.
And yeah, we can go back, but there's this kind of ties into the whole submission piece, right? So you kind of.
So kind of going into what Sam's going to be talking about with a population report. So if you actually look at this, go ahead, Sam.
Am I back?
You are back. Welcome.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries.
Okay. So when you look at the pop reports, for experience looking at PSA's population reports, you will see America, right? Captain America has something like 48, I think, total graded. He has, and what is that, 28 that are 10s or something like that?
Yep.
So, the average person might go in and say, oh, wow, like I have a 60% chance of getting a 10 when I submit my Captain America. I would say, take a step back, you take a pause, and that is not true. So what happens is with things like this that are like really, really new, where all of a sudden something with like, I mean, no offense, but like literal to no value previous to this kind of sudden spike in collectibles becomes like very valuable. What you will see in the population reports, especially these early population reports where people didn't really think to grade them, is people only send in stuff that they think is going to grade really, really well because they're generally doing it for like collecting purposes, right? So these are like the finest specimens that they are sending in. So the fact that like you have a gem rate of 60% is not going to be indicative of what the reality is.
Looks like he's paused again. So again, and hopefully this is what Sam's thinking, is, you look at this population report and again, you're thinking, hey, I'm going to be getting a 10 when that's not really what reality is. So you need to take, again, a hard look at your card because it could be any one of these other grades. Oh,
we got movement
back,
but no sound. But I think he also is trying to say be realistic in general. I mean, that's 10% or whatever the percentage of the creme la creme. I mean, if it's your best card, you may not have a 10. You may have only an 8. So don't be too shocked and don't beat yourself up if you don't got a 10. Sam?
Yeah. Hey, Alonzo, I was actually going to ask you, is it better for me to, since I'm having so many technical difficulties on my end, to kind of drop out and try and drop back?
Yeah, why don't you try that? Sure. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So one last thing that and hopefully I don't get cut off, is just like as we start to have more people, submit these things, chances are the gem rate is going to drop because like these people, we're not scrutinizing them as heavily as the people who initially submitted these things in that wanted them for part of the collection. And then I want to pick up, if I can dial back in successfully on something I think, JR, that you were talking about like the lack of 10s for potentially for particular cards. Maybe we can go into something called the PSA Set Registry, and how like that potentially could lead to some or that could inform you of things that you might want to grade, but you might not have otherwise thought to potentially grade. So,
Okay.
all right. So let me drop off, try and get off this terrible connection, and then hop back in and see if that improves things. All right. So I'll be
Go
back.
for it. Let's do it.
And we'll vamp for a couple minutes while this happens.
No, so go ahead, JR.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, I was gonna say, I don't have any questions, but maybe the audience has some questions we can load up to get ready for when Sam comes back.
Yeah, he should be here shortly. But again, the population report, I know Sith uses this a lot when he's looking for cards or doing research, is if you have certain things that you know that are good in good shape, I mean, definitely take a look at the population chart. So that way you can kind of figure out what cards aren't graded. Because I mean, you know, a lot of people out there are completionists. They want the entire set.
Mm-hmm.
And if they have the opportunity to get a PSA 10 for something that's not there, I mean, by all means, I would do it. I mean, I'm looking at the Hulk right now, and there is no PSA 10 at the moment. To be perfectly honest with you, I would submit a Hulk just to get that in hopes that it would get a 10 and be that person or that one person that has that particular card.
Because then you can demand your price.
Exactly. So you can command the market. Exactly. So I would definitely use the pop report to kind of help that with kind of, again, trying to figure out what your best move would be, in this particular market. So we just go in the pop report in PSA, and then you would just type in 1990 Marvel Universe, and it would give you all of this information. So you can be able to tell which cards are very popular. Like Wolverine obviously is very popular. And it's huge. I mean, significant. They have 31 PSA 10s.
Jeez.
And then you have, again, another Wolverine, and this might be the patch version. And there's 29, and you can see that there's 52 that have been submitted. So it's pretty crazy.
Look at Aunt May. Am I reading that right? That there's 11 and they're all 10s?
That's 13, and it's all 10s. My God.
Man, no one must have liked Aunt May. They're like, I'm not going to play this card. I'm going to keep this nice and mint. I mean, if it was Marissa Tomei, Aunt May, yeah, I understand that.
Oh, for sure. And I believe, too, like the Aunt May card had her stats on it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Was it like her measurements, like 34C, 24, 38?
I don't think those kinds of measurements.
What stats did she have? Was it when she went cosmic for a little while?
Oh my gosh. So let's take a look at this real fast. This is pretty hilarious. So let us move back to
normal mode. Yep.
There we go. And you take a look.
I'm just a second. I'm moving to try to get you to.
If you take a look at this.
Oh, look at that Aunt May.
Oh my God, yes. She's a hottie. Meal served. Can you believe that? Look at that. Meal served.
Does it say anything about, says her weight, her height? Man, it even gives her birth date and everything, doesn't it?
Yep.
Man.
Yeah, but I know that some of these, maybe it's in Series 2 or Series 3, but they actually had their stats listed here, like how powerful they were. And I think...
I remember that.
I think Aunt May has a card that's just exactly like that. It's pretty crazy.
Well, for a little while, she did have some powers because she had that cosmic Aunt May.
She did. So let's just go back to the rundown.
Okay.
So Aunt May, 13. My gosh. And then you have Lockheed, only 7. So I mean, you kind of want to just look again.
There's a Spider-Man. Yep. With a 0 for the 10s.
Wow. I wonder which Spider-Man this one is. It could be the black suit Spider-Man or maybe even the cosmic Spider-Man.
Well, cosmic is right underneath it, so it's not cosmic.
So it might be the black suit.
Might be black suit.
Wow.
That's also kind of cool that what Sith Lord you said here about the fact of they give you a certificate for being the first one in that set type. So
That
that's
is
kind
way
of cool. I wish CGC did something like that.
Yeah. Oh man.
Oh,
Yep.
Sam's back.
All right. So sorry, I had to switch to my mobile phone. Laptop is not cooperating. I think
Okay.
this will be much better though.
There's just going to be a little echo though, Sam. So you might want to turn the if you have the YouTube page up or something, you might want to turn it off or log off of it.
The YouTube page. I don't think I have anything.
He needs to take us off speaker.
Oh, there you go. Headphones. Do you have headphones? Oh. And he's back to freezing again.
What's up, Roger? Nice to see you again. Are you back, Sam? Nope. Okay.
All right. So again, Pop Report, definitely use it as much as you can, as it has a lot of details, a lot of information for you, and it'll help you make the right move. Oh, Sam, you back with us?
Yeah, is it still echoing?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
This is live TV, man. This is great.
Fudge.
It's all right. I say fuck all the time.
Oh, now you're on mute.
I think he put himself on mute.
Yeah. All right. Maybe this wasn't such a good idea. All right.
You sound a little.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
Okay, that didn't work.
Phil, you can try your computer again.
Let's see. Echo cancellation's on. Headset earpiece.
How about this?
Can you hear us now? I don't hear any echo coming from your side.
And it looks like he's paused, so you're not going to hear an echo. This is great.
He's the pause master. Sounds good.
All right.
There we go.
Much better.
Sweet. All right.
Okay. So is there anything you'd like to add to the Pop Report?
Yeah, so I want to talk about a little bit about PSA, the set registry piece that I was talking about. So if you think about potential opportunities, like everyone, I think last time we talked about going for, right, the big characters, the Wolverines, the Iron Mans, the Spider-Mans, things like that, right? Those are kind of like the obvious ones.
Right.
So there's also this concept called the PSA set registry. You'll get some people who are hardcore collectors, meaning like what they want to do is they want to get like a PSA 10 of every single card in that set.
Yep.
Right. And so PSA then also has essentially this thing called a set registry, and there's a certain amount of prestige that's kind of that goes along with that, right? Being like the first person to kind of complete the set and things like that. And so if you think about it, there are going to be a lot of kind of secondary characters or things that people would be like, you know what, like maybe I want to grade this or not want to grade that potentially are worth grading, especially if it like you feel very, very good about the quality of that card, because there could still be demand for it. So while you think, hey, you know what, maybe this isn't a character that I would otherwise think to grade, that could be someone if the quality of the card is in good shape, maybe you throw it into like a lower cost submission that takes time to come back. And so worst comes to worst, you're in it for like $10 to submit the card. You get a good grade, it comes back. And if somebody is chasing that set registry, that could be something you throw it up on eBay or something like that for a high, like a buy it now. And, they snap it up because they need that card because there isn't, you have potentially like the only one so far to date. So that's just another thought.
Yeah, totally agree with you with that one. We were just talking about that, about those set completionists, that want to have it. So yeah, for sure.
So I'm wondering also, our buddy Sith Lord was saying that if you're the first person to get a 10 of a card, they send you a certificate or something. That's what he was saying. If it's the first card of that type of whatever one.
I don't think that's the case. Maybe Sith has had a different experience. I can honestly tell you from my own experience, I actually have had like the first graded PSA 10 of a card before, PSA did not send me a certificate. In fact, they actually sent me the card incorrectly labeled.
Ranked
and so I had
first,
to-
you said. What's the
Oh,
difference?
ranked first. Oh, okay, yeah. So there's basically like a registry completion percentage, I believe, right? And so they and then you can have multiple sets, and so yeah, PSA does. It's like their leaderboard essentially, right?
Okay.
Because I talked about the prestige piece, and yeah, so that's what it is.
Okay. Thank you, Sith Lordy. Sorry, I didn't know the answer to that one, or didn't know that.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go back, and we'll come back to the pop report real fast, and let's go to the fun stuff here.
There's fun stuff here.
Well, you know, some fun stuff.
Are we allowed to put that on YouTube? Because I
Yes.
heard you got a lot of fun stuff on your computer.
Shh. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay.
Stick
So
to the
again,
script.
we-
Stick to the script.
We're going to talk about PSA. So this is essentially what you're looking at once you get on their site and want to submit a card. You're looking at, you know, $10 a card, $20 a card, and so forth. But right now, as you can tell by the red exclamation marks, that turnaround times are impacted because everybody and their mother are submitting their cards, whether they're sports cards, comic book cards, movie cards, whatever it is. PSA is getting them, and they're getting a whole lot of it. So again, and to Sam's point, in regards to how fast you want your card or how much money you're willing to spend, I mean, it's kind of all laid out for you here on their site.
Yeah, and so let's talk a little bit more about this because I think there's a lot of education potentially could be done for people who are, especially if they're new to grading. One of the most common questions that I see a lot of times is people will say, hey, you know, like I see this stuff on the PSA site, like this is how much it costs to submit and how long is it going to take, and do I have to create an account for it? So you have a couple different options. As you can tell by the dollar values there, the cheapest one is this one that they call value submissions. In the old parlance, it's bulk submissions. These are the ones that take a really long time. These are only available to people if you sign up for a paid PSA subscription. And they have different subscription models. I think, in fact, actually, they may not even be making them available anymore, actually, for individuals. We can double check. But at one point, I think there was like a $150 option and then also a $250 option. And so if you wanted to use bulk, you would have to have one of those. You can also just create a free account, and then use one of those other service levels like economy, regular, express, super express, and the walkthrough. Right. So if you want to go the solo route, you just want to do it yourself, you're free to do so. Just if you don't want to use a paid subscription or pay for a paid subscription, you have to use one of the higher dollar values. One of the other options for people, and this is one that I would highly recommend that people pursue instead, is actually to go through the route of using one of the bulk submitters or group submitters. And perfect, thanks for sharing that. In my experience, like these are just 3 people that I personally have used. I can vouch for them. The customer service is great. PC Sports Cards, I believe they're actually the largest group submitter. They have a great website telling you how many cards they've actually submitted in the year, how many they still have outstanding. They're based in New York. Mark's Cards, the one in the middle, they're actually based in, I guess, not technically LA County, but they're in California. They actually drive the cards and hand deliver them to their PSA rep, I believe, every Wednesday or Thursday. So that's different. And then Nash Cards is actually based in Nashville. So we kind of tried to give you an option depending on what part of the country you're in. So one of the reasons why I would highly recommend doing that is that they actually, each of these groups, they are privy to essentially special group rates. So one of the, I think, options that we had in the PSA one directly, if you were to go through them, is their express option is $75 per card. For I think like PC Sports Cards, it's something like 65. I think Mark's is like 65. I think the Nashville cards or Nash Cards, I think their option is like I think $55. And a lot of the variability also has to do with what they call the declared value of a card. So how much you think the card is worth, essentially.
when you get the grade back from it. But you essentially get the option, right, to pay, or you have the ability to pay less. You are not subject to quantity like restrictions or limits or minimums. And then oftentimes they actually, because they have this like essentially business account or are PSA approved dealers, in a sense, the submissions that they have will get like recognized or put into the system first before your own. So those are just some of the high level reasons why you might want to consider going with a group submission. Additionally, and none of these guys, I believe, actually do it, but there are some that are out there that will. There are other some that will, for an additional fee, actually inspect your cards and give you, if you will, a second opinion as to whether or not the card that you're submitting is grade worthy as well.
Wow. Okay. So if you have my eyes, everything looks like a PSA 10. You may want a third party to kind of help you out there.
Yeah, and having, I think we talked about this in the last podcast, but having seen Alonso's stuff, I think his eyes are about a PSA 5. So,
wow, that's pretty bad. And I'm the one that's blind as a bat.
Hey, but my comic rating's pretty on point. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so you're like a CGC 9.6?
9.8.
Oh, okay.
9.8. 9.8, man.
His spec is probably a little lower though. I think he's spec to like a 5.5 or so.
Oh my god, you guys are horrible.
PGX.
But yeah, I mean, I'm just, again, speaking from experience here. You may not have a lot of cards. I mean, you saw the PSA. You have to have 25 to even qualify for that $10 value. And you might have just a few that you've kind of looked at and said, you know what, I think these are worth grading, that worth a shot. So going through these particular vendors, I think might be the most ideal solution for everybody.
Yeah. Also, like another. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jared.
I was going to ask, like, what's the turnaround time for? I mean, I know you said that they get bumped ahead of the normal Joe Blow, but like with value, obviously you're figuring you're going to get it when you get it, kind of thing. If you pay the $75, you're going to get, I think they said like whatever the time frame was. How much faster is their time frame compared to like the $75 one? Or
yeah. So I think, I mean, and I should say, right, that they're like allegedly, right, if you're one of these group servers, that stuff will kind of come in first. And I mean, realistically, especially for the ones that are able to hand deliver their stuff and don't have to wait for it to go through the mail, you'll gain some efficiency there. If you go 5 day, right, to give you an example, and you pay that $75 a card, right? So 5 day right now, the expected turnaround is 3 to 4 weeks for 5 day, right? For value, the expected turnaround time is somewhere between like 6 to 12 months. So that's where you have to kind of figure out the economics of it, right? One of the pieces of the equation is are you willing to pay that $65 to essentially be first to market, right? Or at least one of the earlier people to the market. And it's one of those ones where you kind of also have to make a bet on the future of the, let's say in this case, since we're talking about Marvel cards, Marvel market, right? If you think that it will be a sustained interest, right? Marvel's got their Marvel Universe. Once COVID is over and they can release, the movies in the theaters, and people go out and Marvel starts building, right, to their next event, and collectibles stay hot, then it's one of those ones where you're like, you know what? I'm a little bit risk averse. I don't want to put out $75 per card. I've got, let's say, $100. That's a $7,500 bill potentially, right, that I am looking to outlay. I don't feel comfortable with that. But if I pay $10 a card, even if I have 100 cards, that's $1,000. I wait a longer time, but if the market is still sustainable and there's still interest, then I'm okay with that. I don't need to capitalize on it right away, kind of thing. So that's another consideration.
And I can also see if you're collecting them versus selling them, you may go, hey, I'll just pay the cheaper and take my time because it's just going to go in the box anyway, rather than paying the fast and getting put up on eBay.
Yep.
That's a great point. The one thing I will say though that they kind of you sort of have no control over is, let's say Marvel's market continues to stay red hot, right? Super hot. You have a great eye, better than Alonso's, and you submit a bunch of cards, and
That's
they
not
all come
hard.
back as like, yeah, exactly. PSA 9, PSA 10, right? And the Marvel market's super hot. And at that point, the resale value for these things is, into the hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for some of these things. So PSA not only charges you based on kind of like the time it takes, but they will also look at the actual declared value, which I mentioned earlier, of the card. So if then PSA finishes your submission and they say, oh, you know what? Hey, that PSA 10 like Wolverine that you put in there, I saw the most recent some sets of submissions or completed sales have gone for $1,000. That's higher than our declared value limit of $99. So I'm going to bump you up in terms of the cost of that.
Oh.
So not only have you waited longer to get the card back, but then PSA is going to say, I'm going to ding you anyways for the true declared value of that card. So there is that piece of it as well, which we haven't talked about.
Wow.
That's brutal. So,
yeah.
And that's because I saw those values on there, like $199 for the value one. Was that per card or for the whole lot of cards?
It's per card, and there's a lot of different nuances there. So if you do it directly yourself, PSA's declared value limit on the value orders is $199. If you go through one of the group submissions, it's actually $99. So PSA has kind of laid out some different rules for the group submitters as well. So unfortunately, it's not as kind of clean cut and clear as we would like it to be as we're directing people to these things. But the good thing I'll say is about all of these websites, they have really, really good documentation to make the process super easy. So if you just kind of go through, you should be able to navigate your way into a submission pretty easily.
Yeah, Sam, even Sam Klesko, he was saying that, dude, they should go off of the submission date because it's not really the submitter's fault, right?
Yeah, and that's been the common gripe for PSA, especially as these turnaround times have gone from, for value, I would say a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, you were waiting maybe 3 months or something like that for a value submission, which isn't too bad, right? Then 3 months became 6 months has started to become 12 and whatnot. I will say that they don't literally, because if you think about it, right, the volume of cards that they have, they do not literally have somebody inspecting every single card in these submissions and say, oh, well, this one is $100. So that's the next tier up. So I'm going to ding you for that. It's just, they will generally hit you if there is something that is glaringly obvious.
Like a 10.
But if it's a 10 and you had a Wolverine in there, and the last few Wolverine sales have been $1,000 a card, and you submitted under, declared value of $99, chances are you will get what they call upcharged, right? But if you have a Jubilee that just sold for $200, will they ding you for it? That probably not, at least in my experience.
What if you have a 10 that has not, like you're saying, you're the first person to get that 10? There's technically no value because it hasn't sold.
Yeah, I would say that it's pretty rare that you will get upcharged unless so they also do evaluate, right? What they will do is look and say, hey, you know what? This person, there's no 10 yet, but this feels like a relatively common card. If I look at the raw value of the card, and then someone else has a PSA 10 of this card now, the raw values are equivalent. The PSA 10 of this card sold for $500. So I'm going to assume that it might sell for $500 as well. Similar type raw to graded 10. So they may ding you for that. It's rare, but I've also heard cases where that's happened.
Man,
I got a good question for you from the audience. Sam is asking you, Sam, have you been hit? And if so, what was the card? I'm assuming have been hit by this thing, not a car, hopefully.
Not been hit by a car, but have been hit by the PSA upcharge. It's kind of funny, as much as you gripe about it, and everybody gripes about it when they get one of those, if you take a step back, you actually are kind of happy, because chances are what that means is your card graded really well above and beyond kind of what you were evaluating it, and the market since that time has probably accelerated. So yes, I have. I actually I submitted an order. This was maybe about 6 months ago. I think I had 15 cards in the order, and I got upcharged for 3 of them. because the market had just moved that quickly. And I was fortunate enough where I think I got like 10s on those cards. So they were worth far and above what the declared value was. I think that I submitted them under a declared value limit of like $499. And I mean, I think the 3 of them each were several thousands of dollars.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Good for you.
Yeah. So in a way, it's a good news, bad news thing. You don't like to see it, but chances are that means that that card graded really well. So.
Okay. All right. So it's enough about these group submitters. And now let's go to how do you get your stuff to these group submitters?
Pause.
So
yeah,
go ahead.
Oh, nothing. Go ahead. I'll talk after you. Sorry.
Awesome. So whether or not you're submitting it directly to PSA or you are putting them in a box or submitting to one of those group submitters, you're definitely going to need some penny sleeves as well as some top loaders. So these are just some that kind of picked out, but it'll definitely keep your card safe. Definitely keep it from getting dinged on its way to the company. Or again, if you just kind of keep it in a box somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, from an availability standpoint, right? These are all things that certainly, if you're, I don't know if your comic store will have it, but certainly your baseball card shop, if you have one of those local to you, they will have it. You can get a lot of this stuff over on Amazon. You can get it on some of the baseball or card retailer sites as well. They'll have this. This is super key, right? For each of these cards that you're thinking about submitting, you want to put each of them in a penny sleeve, right? Or what's called card sleeve on here. And then you can put it in a top loader because PSA is allowing that. But you can also submit them through what they call semi-rigid card holders. They're probably more popularly known as card saver ones. And then like the company that's on there here, BCW and Ultra Pro, they also have their own versions of those kind of card saver one type semi-rigid holders. So super important. The recommendation, stick each of those cards right in the penny sleeve and then stick each of those individual cards in a top loader or a semi-rigid card holder. For the love of God, whatever you do not seal those top loaders with regular tape. Please use, like if you're going to use tape, use painter's tape. If you use regular tape, you will find that tape will stick to the card. You will find that group submitters will hate you, will ban you from submissions, and they will charge you extra for the manual labor that you have then given to them to clean up your submission. So just a PSA on that.
One thing I'll say about BCW, I don't know about Ultra Pro, but you can order directly from them. And if you're ordering in a big submission like I do for bags and boards, they do free shipping and they will cut the price down considerably more than even getting from Amazon and from your local comic shops. So if you buy a good amount, I think it's like $75. I don't know how many that is in top loaders, but I know they're not cheap either. But if you're doing this hardcore and doing a lot of these, you're going to go through a lot of top loaders.
Yeah, and I'll give you, just from my experience, kind of what I've seen the market bear out. So the penny sleeves, or what are called the card sleeves, they should probably run you anywhere from like $1 to $2. That's what I've personally paid and seen, whether it's online or physically in the shop. The top loaders that are here, I think those are packs of 25. Those are going to run anywhere from like, I've seen them as cheap as $3.50. You could probably get them if you go to like a show, like a card show. You might even be able to get them for like, $2 to $3. But I've also seen them on the high end, probably like $5 to $6, depending on demand at the time. And then the semi-rigid card sleeves that I was talking about, generally a box of 200 of those will cost you about $40. So.
Okay. Yeah, this is it's kind of like our bags and boards at a comic shop. We want to protect everything. And again, same thing with the painter's tape. When we're sending off our books, you don't want to use too much Scotch tape. You want to use the painter's tape to kind of make sure that the book is kind of not going to move around a lot in transit. So, I mean, it's very similar to what we do with our books. And then here we go with the actual mailing them out. So, Sam, you mentioned that to safely do it, and this is again once you get a PSA card, or even if you don't, I mean, how these envelopes here, do you use it sending it to PSA, or once you get a PSA card?
Yeah, so if you're going to send a PSA, right, so PSA has packing instructions. It's going to be, I think, nothing out of the ordinary, what we'd all expect, which is pack your stuff up, protect it, put it in a box, right, properly label it, send it to them. Same thing if you're sending the stuff over to the group submitters, who are then ultimately sending it for you, right? This specific example I wanted to call out because I'm like, okay, you're to the end of the process. You've graded your cards successfully. You put them, on eBay, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, right? Made a sale. So now let's talk about, how do you ship these things securely? Because I think for a lot of people, they may not have experience with graded cards. And if you're not careful, you are going to easily get these things cracked in the mail and then have a claim opened against you, right? Through eBay, PayPal, whatever. So the recommendation on here, there's two envelopes, right? There's a 5x7 and a 7x10. In an ideal world, I believe if you buy the right sizes, the 5x7 will fit snugly inside the 7x10. And the actual graded slab, what we call a slab from PSA, will fit nicely within the 5x7 itself. So what you would do is I would recommend people do is to essentially load up on the top loaders that are, sorry, not the bubble mailers, the 5x7s and the 7x10s for an individual card. Take it. If you want to go the extra step, a lot of people also like to have what they call graded card sleeves. So literally it's just an extra layer of protection for the actual slab itself so that doesn't get scuffed up. Then you take one of those, you put it in the 5x7, and then take the 5x7, and then you throw it in the 7x10 as well. And then if you want to go even crazier and go for like the A triple plus packaging, right? You would take some kind of cardboard reinforcement and put that on both sides of the slab within the 5x7. I mean, and that's the stuff that I think buyers will appreciate. I know certainly when I'm buying something, I definitely appreciate the effort that people put into the packing of the stuff. It'll just save you a lot of headaches. If your slab gets damaged in the mail, right, then it just becomes one of those, especially I think in today's environment where the seller is usually liable for the damage. So if you didn't pick up insurance on that card, that could be just something you're like, oh, I wish I'd spent the extra couple bucks on packing that securely. So I think that's just one thing I want to emphasize, especially as grading has become more prevalent and there are more of it, and there's just more transactions. People are kind of learning from the lessons. A lot of people will just slap the slab in let's say a non-bubble mailer, or even just the 5x7. And with the volume of mail they're getting, the stuff is just getting cracked easily, unfortunately. So just that easy mistake, right? For that can be really preventable.
So I want to just double check on if you put cardboard on there, because I know with comic books, we always say if you put cardboard in there and put the comic in between it, make sure the cardboard's a little bit bigger than the actual comics, and then use painter's tape and make little tabs and seal it on all four sides so that there's no room for it. It's nice and snug. It doesn't move. Would that be the same theory you want to do with the card? When you've got it in the case, that is?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, if you have the time to do that, that would be great. That totally works well. I would say you may not necessarily need to be as precise. At least in my experience, the slab within that kind of 5x7 envelope is pretty snug. So if you simply can take two cardboard wedges or whatever we want to call them and put them in there, there's not a lot of room for that to move all over the place. So it'll do a pretty good job of reinforcing it.
Okay.
Cool. All right. And again, we've kind of talked about the population report. Does anybody have any questions or anything? Or Sam, did you want to add to any of this?
So, one thing I want to maybe roll in a history lesson about pop reports and what we've seen, what the card market has seen previously, just as some kind of food for thought, right? Because I think with a lot of people who haven't done this before, they look at the low pops and they say oh, hey, this is great. I'm going to throw my stuff in, get it back, and then I'm just going to make a lot of, money off of it. So I do want to throw a bit of a cautionary tale from history in on this stuff. The thing that comes to mind is, so in the soccer card market, it was very similar about a year ago to what we're seeing right now in the Marvel market, which is that very low pops. It started to become valuable. People started to submit that stuff. And soccer card markets, especially the 2014 Prism, it boomed. What used to be something you would get for $50 became as high as like $4,000 for some of these cards.
Whoa.
Yeah, but then just as quickly as it went up, like it went down really fast. It went down from like 4,000 all the way down to about $450, $500 for that same card. And as quickly as it went up, it only took about, I think, 3 to 4 months for it to retrench. So, that's just to say, like, hey, the fact that these things are low pop, it's not necessarily means that these things are, hard to grade. They could be. It's just more of like when you're doing the math on what to send in, just make sure that it is something that, because grading gets expensive, it's going to take a while. Just make sure that you have room in your budget, right, to do these things. We've talked about a lot about the potential for what these things can do, and I actually feel like pretty good overall about the market. I've seen some posts on Instagram just from people who had a lot of like really big sales, and I think there's still a lot of really good buzz going around on the Marvel market. But I just want to make sure that people, when they're doing it, right, that they exercise good financial judgment about what to send, how much to send, and just have realistic expectations, right, about what to get back from it. So,
no, that's great advice, Sam. And then going towards the end here, and again, to your point, as far as like the population report, you can tell like all the popular superheroes are the ones that are going to be submitted to grade. And as comic book collectors, we already know what's going to be popular. So we know what to submit. I mean, we know that Fantastic Four is coming up. We know that Ms. Marvel, even though they don't have a Ms. Marvel card, but we know these things are coming. Hawkeye's going to be coming. Moon Knight's going to be coming. We have all that inside information, and potentially some of these other people that are submitting, they don't. But you should use that in conjunction with the population report to kind of help you make those better judgments. And again, to Sam's point too, also, that financial risk. So you got to weigh all of that in order to make that money or to make that investment. Okay. So that's what we have. Do we have any questions from the chat? I mean, we've kind of talked a lot about the finer things in how to submit and what to use in order to get your cards over to PSA. And again, based on what Sam said, it kind of looks like going through those group resellers or those group submissions will probably be the best option for a lot of us. And I know that I might be looking into, what was it, Mark's cards in order to do that, since they're local to California.
So I'm just curious, do we know if there's obviously sports have still got card sets coming out every year. Do we know if there's any plan? Have we heard anything about like Marvel coming out with a new type of set? If they are, should we stay away from it? Any advice on that kind of thing, Sam?
So I wouldn't be surprised if. So I think Upper Deck actually has the license with Marvel, if I'm not mistaken, to manufacture their cards. I think they have been putting stuff out right in conjunction with the various movies. They probably put, I think in 2020, in fact, I think they actually did a Marvel Masterpieces. Someone can probably fact check me on that, but I think they did do that. The question will be whether or not there is a proliferation of additional card sets and whether or not production goes up. It's the same questions essentially that are facing the sports cards industry, which is like, okay, now that the manufacturers can see that there's essentially heightened interest, right? They're going to look at it and say, hey, okay, if I've only been printing X amount of this stuff, but demand has now outstripped that, right, supply, do I have an opportunity to increase production, create new products, and essentially, right, make more money in the bottom line? Right. So I think that's the thing that we kind of have to watch, and I think it's a little too early to say, right? The whole boom in the comic book cards is still so new that I don't know if Upper Deck has made any plans yet. I'm sure they have an eye on what's going on, right, and are thinking about that. Like, absolutely, right? They've got people watching it. There was one recent sale I actually saw on, since you were talking about like newer things and whether or not to stay away from it. Sorry, I saw actually someone today post. So on ComC, which is, checkout, it stands for checkoutmycards.com. So comc.com. They sold a 2020 Upper Deck Marvel Masterpieces 1 of 1. I think they got like $3,800 for it.
Wow.
So is there a market for some of these things that are more limited? Absolutely. There is, which is also why I think, I know we didn't touch on it too specifically, right? But the market doesn't really feel like it's lost a lot of momentum yet. I am super curious what's going to happen though once like we get, let's say, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, when the people who are finding all of these Marvel cards and submitted them start to get that back, and the market gets all of this supply back out at roughly the same time. That's really going to be kind of like the litmus test for the market to say, is it truly sustainable, or was it kind of like a flash in the pan?
Well, and that kind of leads into my other question is like, I know sports cards, they have like, oh, here's your jersey card, here's the throwback card. They have all these different gimmicks. For comic book cards, other than like an artist proof type card or like original sketch type thing, there's not a lot. You can't go, oh, here's Deadpool's jersey.
Nah.
You know what I mean? Because it's all drawn anyway. It's all imaginary medium in a sense. And I'm kind of wondering, how is it going to stay sustainable if every year they're going, oh, well, here's a new Deadpool set, or here's a new X-Men set for 10 years running. I don't know if that can happen, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. I think, right, that you hit on one of the challenges, right, with potentially with this. So 1990 Marvel, I think a lot of people have zeroed in on because they're just like, okay, this is pretty much the rookie card, right, for all of these characters. And then really what's going to, so there's a couple ways, right, that I think the manufacturers are counting on. One of them is way more likely than the other. So what they can do is they can manufacture scarcity, artificial scarcity. So what they can do is they can serial number things. They can make parallels of it. So it's like, yeah, maybe this is Deadpool's 20th appearance, but this is the first time like he's on this, what we call a precious metal gem, and it's numbered to 50. Because then people are going to be like, ooh, like there's only 50 of this shiny object, I want it, right? So that happens. Sports card manufacturers do that all the time. And then the other thing, right, is, and this is the less likely piece, is you could have breakout characters, right, that haven't been, that are just getting introduced, and so maybe their first appearance, right, isn't until later on, and so that's where kind of the opportunity for a rookie card, right, in the comics would appear. But yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's a great question, JR.
Thank you.
So, I mean, it goes in line with like Deadpool. I know Guy had mentioned his X-Force or his Deadpool, and it's kind of like the same thing. I mean, it is a rookie card, the first person or the first to market. My God, it was like $4,000 for that PSA 10. But every subsequent card that's coming out, I mean, it's the lower the value now, you know. And then everybody and the mother, since X-Force wasn't over manufactured book, I mean, everybody has a copy of this, so prices will drop.
5.
Right. And so that's another thing to consider. You know, I mean, how many of these things are out there?
Yeah, it was a conversation I was having with Alonzo, right? If you are a holder out there of that comic, right, you have to sort of make a decision. I think right now there's still kind of positive value. People are still buying that stuff up. It's like, do you want to essentially take the chance, play the game, the PSA grading game, right? Hope to get one of a PSA 10 or even a PSA 9, right? And depending on what you sing into it, let's say you do an express, so it's like $75. And then by that time, now there's like, everyone else has had the same idea. So there's 300 PSA 10s of Deadpool all of a sudden, what used to be like a population 4 card. And at that point, you know, prices are going to come way down, as they normally would. Or would you rather say, hey, you know what? Like I can get $20 or $30 for that X-Force 1, which I like prior to that was worthless to me. And now, you know, so now do you take the money in the short term, or do you kind of gamble for the longer term, right? I mean, those are the inflection points.
Well, thanks a lot, everybody, for your questions, for your posts and comments. And if you guys could have, or you guys have any questions or anything, leave a comment or hit JR or myself up on Instagram, and we'll be able to help you out with any kind of advice or anything like that. So, JR, do you want to take us out?
Yeah. Also, make sure to like and subscribe too, guys. We need those likes. We need those comments. Get this going around. Pass it around. But if you want to do it right, collect what you like.